See if we can run it for a second. He's alive. Ah, that'll motivate you. That just got me goosebumps. I'm ready for race season. Let's go. Well, this is the easy part, doing all this install or just kind of reinstalling stuff. If I can remember how everything goes back together. The order that the parts go together, the carb, the spacer, the little bracket for the throttle cable and all that kind of stuff. It's all pretty clean, should be nice and spotless. Looks good. A little bit of glue there from the tape that I used. I'm going to clean that off really quick. I'm assuming that you want essentially a flipping really tight, airtight seal on all these things. Otherwise you're going to be sucking extra air in the sides that you probably wouldn't want to be. So a little bit of glue residue from that duct tape that I used to seal those up. I'll clean that off and we'll get underway with this thing. I did appreciate it was actually kind of comical to me on my lack of knowledge, if you will, on the electrical stuff. I hope I say your name right. My brother goes by Hans. Most people probably pronounce it Hans, but I got a gentleman by that same name. Hans has offered to mail me a much better crimper. So Hans, thank you very much. Or Hans, however you go by the way, let me know. I don't know how you'd let me know that without actually talking on the phone how you pronounce. Yeah, that's a little bit of gluey residue. I got another gentleman up in Canada who sent me a million links to a bunch of different, I know the Deutsch connectors, Deutsch, however you say it. Deutsch connectors are kind of the standard, and I've been wanting to go that way for quite a while. I just haven't yet. But my question is, I get that those connect or connectors, but what do you do when you still got a tachometer or something off the shelf from Napa that you got to put just a ring terminal on? These Deutsch connectors is I guess my question is to all you better wirers than me, do they make Deutsch ring terminals and spade terminals and all that kind of stuff? I don't know if they exist or not. Maybe they do, maybe. So my point is, I get that those are a much higher quality connector than what I've been using, my China stuff. But let me know, what do you, there's a lot of crap on here. Let me know how do you, if you're gonna go that route and get these fancy Deutsch connectors, what do you put on the other end of it when it actually connects to something? And do you solder it up? Oh, there we go. I got a little bit of stuff down in there. Pardon the noise. So if you're going that route with the nice Deutsch connectors, I probably can't even say that right. Deutsch connectors, what do you connect the other end to? Because I do want to up my game and have higher quality stuff like those connectors, but anyway. All right, so here we go. Stacking all the 8 million gaskets on here. The spacer. Now, I want to say this one was thicker, that we're going to put the throttle cable. Yeah, I don't like that one because it's different diameter. Maybe that was the wrong one. Let's try that one. Well, that makes me question. All right, so next would be, this is our homemade job. It actually turned out pretty good. I don't want to say, maybe we were rubbing ourselves some horsepower last year, because I feel like this is, oh yeah, I guess that is the right, no, it's not exactly. What does a person do there? As Derek says, what does a guy do? I think I might want to trim that, because that is not all the way out on the diameter of that opening. Maybe we were robbing ourselves horsepower last year and didn't even know it, unless I have another one of those gaskets laying around, which I don't. That was all of them. So I'm going to try to, I'll be dipped. All those are nice and perfect. This one is, that gasket is not the right size. Hold that thought, I'm going to go inside and see if I have another one. I think I got it all cleaned up. Looks way better. And we are going to keep on keeping on. Oh, am I doing everything right here? I think so. Looks good. You know, one thing I'll say, you know, about putting all this stuff up on the old YouTube is you're really letting the world see all of your shortcomings. And I'm kind of cool with that, because like I said, I've never proclaimed to be an expert at this. This is a hobby for me, but I know there's going to be more experienced welders, there's going to be more experienced electricians, plumbers, engine brains, all that stuff. It is kind of humbling, and I probably get more out of, is that camera even pointing at this thing? And obviously I'm not a very good YouTuber either. I guess it is, but not very well. That might be better. That there's always gonna be somebody more knowledgeable and more experienced and all that stuff. So I actually, one of my cool things I like about YouTube is I learned quite a bit from all the comments and stuff. So I guess you get out what you put in, kind of a thing, or some, I don't know, some philosophical statement like that. But anyway, it's guess I'll keep plugging along, but it is a little humbling at times when you think you got everything figured out and you obviously don't got things figured out. My old Harbor Freight ratchet system. Stuff isn't cheap, by the way. Last year, I don't remember what happened, but I forgot a set of my ratchets at home, and we're going to the racetrack. And we're like, all right, well, there's a Harbor Freight. We'll just buy kind of a temporary kind for the race down in Port Angeles. So we went into the Harbor Freight, and man, I didn't get I think Pittsburgh is one of the brands. I got and I kind of knew that I eventually needed to start stocking this new toolbox up with better stuff. So what is this brand? Icon, I think it's called. That stuff isn't cheap, you know, and you think that it's Harbor Freight, it's going to be super, super cheap, but I guess what do people call it? The snap-on of Harbor Freight? I guess that's pretty accurate. And I'd say so far, just using the Icon ratchets, the sockets, that I'm actually pretty happy with it. I think a person could do a whole YouTube review on just Harbor Freight stuff. What's good, what's junk, because we all know that there's a lot of junk that comes out of there, but some of it's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with this ratchet system. Anyway, moving right along. Everything is easier on this boat with the headers off. It just makes getting into all these spots, like right here, putting the fuel line on down here. It's just way easier. So that is when I'm... these things can always just be a bear. The headers are usually, when I'm finally done, that's usually the last thing I will put on. It just opens up so much more. Okay, this thing's gonna be a pain. It's so flippin' tight down here with the engine mount. There we go. You just gotta jiggle it. You just gotta jiggle it a little bit. That seems, like that's what I've learned on those ends. You just jiggle it, just to move it a little bit so that that fitting can spin a little bit more free. Look at that. I mean, it's kind of fun. It's like putting these things back together. It's a walk down memory lane, and my memory of this fuel regulator, new fuel regulator, the Aeromotive. I want to say that was Cletus's first race out there in July when I'm pretty sure that was that race. When I messed up and crushed that fuel line. It's not a good memory, but it's a memory. Makes me summer sick. I miss summer. Who else is flipping tired of the cold, the rain? Sitting there watching Cletus down in Florida wearing their t-shirts and stuff. I'm like, that would be nice right about now. I guess you pick where you live, and there's pros to cons to everything. But anyway, I'm going to fiddle fight with this thing, get this in, and we'll see what's next. Well, I thought that right before I'd throw on the headers, I'd do one kind of last glance over and found a couple things. I found that side water line wasn't tightened all the way, and I know that I didn't do my, in the rule book we have to have chain or cable as safety hold downs, that those are required to have a grade 8 bolt holding in 4 corners of the engine in case you have a really nasty wipeout, that you have one last safety thing that holds the engine in. So I went and did all 4 corners of those. Now it's time to go put the headers on. And lo and behold, I'll be dipped if I didn't find that my gaskets were all jacked up. But thankfully, luckily, I have a parts room. It's also known as my dining room. I went and bought a couple years ago those big industrial Lowe's shelves, and I had a dining room that I just don't use. I never have. Never since being in this house, I never used it. And probably one of the most underused houses or rooms in the country, honestly, is a formal dining room. Who uses those things? Anyway, I had a parts room, and I know I've got some gaskets in there. So lo and behold, the old Phil Pro 1407s had a couple of them in there. So I know that the Bean is always giving me crap about stockpiling and buying stuff in bulk, but it sure does come in handy sometimes. In fact, pretty much when I order anything, I buy multiples, just because obviously it's handy to have it, just walk in there and have one in my house. But the other thing is, I feel like I waste a lot of time looking up the old part numbers and stuff. Like, how would I, unless it's visible, then you got to go dig around and find out which gasket it is and all that kind of stuff. And man, just having them right there sure is handy. Anyway, so putting on some brand new Felpro exhaust gaskets on that. It feels kind of good. It kind of feels like when you change your oil in your car. It just, I don't know. Feels like my engine's going to be happy, or Chris's engine is going to be happy because we did that. So you're welcome, Chris. You got some brand new exhaust gaskets in here, so that should seal up nice and good and not be spewing hot gases everywhere in your engine bay. guess what? Headers are on, brand new. Exhaust gaskets, those are flipping ready to go. Moving right along. Carburetor's in, the line's in, the fuel pressure regulator, all connected, all tight. These pumps, you absolutely positively cannot run them without being in the water. Those bearings in there, they will melt almost immediately as soon as you fire up. So you have to disconnect the drive shaft when you run these things on a hose or whatever. You don't need the water coolant. Obviously you can run it for a while without any coolant at all, but you need water going through that pump. So I designed some spacers. Essentially I will put that flex plate on there. And hey, here's a tip I'm going to share with all my fellow racers who say I'm not fair. You want to reduce your rotating mass, which equals horsepower, right? Go buy yourself a lightweight flex plate. That is probably the quickest, easiest, cheapest way to reduce your rotating mass and get effective horsepower. And I've been doing that for years. And these things, the only issue is there's so much material taken out of them, they will fail on you. So I always have a spare at the track. Just in case. But anyway, yeah, there's my pro tip for fellow racers. Get the lightweight flex plate. You're welcome. Getting kind of cocky. All right, I'm going to get to putting that flex plate on, get the breathers on, and we'll keep on moving on and get this thing fired. Okay, well, this thing is ready for its first fire. I pulled all the spark plugs so it would turn over easier. Put a little spray lube in each cylinder before I turn the motor over. Put a little bit of fuel in the tank. Turn the battery on, discharge the accumulator over there, and I heard the oil going in there. And so then I was ready to crank it over, so I cranked it. And I had oil pressure showing on the gauge, that's good, and I also had fuel pressure showing on the gauge, and we have fuel. So, put the spark plugs back in, and going over last final things, I never tightened down my oil pressure line, so I'm glad I caught that so we didn't leak oil everywhere. But, the breather is on. This thing is ready to fire. Now, here's my disclaimer and a quick story. I've started this thing, or these boats in this garage. It is horrible outside. It's like 38 degrees and raining, and I am not about to pull it outside to start it. I'm going to just fire it in here. Well, I'm going to hopefully fire it in here and just see where we're at. So, it is probably going to blow crap, and it might even blow the phone over. I don't know, or the little tripod there. We'll see. But it is extremely loud. I just want to fire it and see if it'll fire, if it'll run for just a second, and then I'm going to call it good, and then I'm going to kind of finalize everything. The other thing that I wait for is the final seat install, because with the seats out, that gives you total access to the electrical panel, so I don't secure the seats until we're ready for business either. So I'm gonna delay on that until I get this thing running. I know it's gonna fire, blah, 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 blah. So, real side, a very funny, quick story. I grew up around airplanes. My dad was a pilot up in Alaska. When I was in high school, me and my little juvenile friends, we were at my dad's hangar. I don't know if I know he never found out about this, and he doesn't watch YouTube, so he'll probably never find it out. We were like 17 years old, and we started one of his airplanes inside of the hangar, and it blew stuff everywhere. And that's where the prop, these things, just the exhaust is going to blow everything. Anyway, so one other thing. How many YouTubers out there, when you see these guys and gals with their engines and fast cars, boats, whatever, How many of them fire on the first attempt? I will totally disclose that if this thing fires, I will tell you how long it took me to actually get it started. But here it goes. I am ready to get this thing going. We will see what happens. Battery on. There's the accumulator. That should be ignition on. And here we go. Very first run. Holy guacamole. That did not take much at all. So swear to you on YouTube's oath that that was literally the very first time I hit the starter with ignition on. See if we can run it for a second. She's alive. Ah, that'll motivate you. That just got me goosebumps. I'm ready for race season. Let's go. Yep, stuff's falling everywhere. Woohoo! All right, get asphyxiated. Let's evacuate the smoke before I die. Whew. Yeah. Good Lord. Well, that was pretty rad. That thing literally fired first flipping touch that starter button. That's pretty awesome. I'm pretty excited with that. You can see it is flat nasty out here. Oh man, that was awesome. I'm ready to race now after hearing that. Holy crap, let's go. Who's ready to watch some sprint boat racing? Ah, so stoked. And this isn't even my boat, and I'm stoked. Wait till the 500 gets here, then I'm gonna be really fired up. Anyway, this thing is, I'm gonna call it done. Just a couple things. I gotta connect the drive line, put the seats, zip tie up some lines, and this thing is ready to go on the water, ready to put Chris in it, and ready to rip. So I'm going to sign this video out. I'm going to say that the 360 is officially done, and we're going to get to work on the 907. Thanks for watching. Oh man, I'm fired up. Let's go.